So it's a vacation day and I'm back out in the garage. Unfortunately, I already did some work that I filmed and the audio didn't work for some reason. So I didn't catch that until I went back to look at the video. So I gotta kind of show you where I'm at, even though you won't see some of what I did. But I can bring you up to speed pretty easy. So we're gonna go back in the corner over there and get going on some ring gap stuff. Now I know in my last like 2 or 3 videos ago, it was probably 2 videos ago, I had mentioned that I like to measure, because I was discussing reusing piston rings, and I like to measure the relaxed ring gaps when they're not in the bore, the ring gap when the ring's just sitting there. So I do that after, like if I got a new set of rings, I will gap them to whatever spec I go with, take them out of the bore, and then I'll document that relaxed ring gap. And the reason I do that is because when you tear a motor down, you're not pulling out ungapped rings. So that way you're comparing the same gap. So if I was to measure these before I gap them, measure that relaxed gap, that number wouldn't make any sense when I go to measure it again relaxed after the motor's been used, take it apart. If I measure it relaxed then, the numbers don't make sense. So like I said, I will actually gap the rings, then measure that gap, and then measure them again used. I'm still thinking I'm probably going to reuse these rings just because I've already kind of looked things over a little bit and they look pretty good. So I'm just going to kind of show you how I go about doing that measurement and what I record, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to get my binder out and show you why I keep notes. So here's my miracle binder. It's full of all my good information here. Just a 3-ring binder. And I keep documents on anything I do, change, make, whatever. I record it, and any kind of paperwork I get with a part that I might need for reference later at some point, I keep. But for now, this is my note sheet from when I put these piston and rings together back in January 16th of 2019. So these pistons and rings have been in here that long. And these are the measurements I got. Again, this is after I'd already gapped them, set my ring gaps, pull them back out. So these are my new open ring gap measurements, or relaxed. See, relaxed ring gaps after setting gap. So these are all my numbers. So what I did for ease of talking, because I want to get this binder out of the way. So we'll put this back up where it goes. And now I just took those same numbers that we just looked at and just wrote them down here. So relaxed when they were new, those are the gaps. And like I said, I recorded some of this and the audio didn't turn out. So there was just some video of me blabbing in silence. So these are the rings I got laid out here. So piston 1, 2, 3, 4. Top rings, bottom rings. Oil rings, I don't concern myself too much with. I'll look for damage, and you can tell if one has really got no tension on it, because they do have a ring gap. Let me point the camera actually at something here. So they do actually have a ring gap, but these are low tension rings. They're not meant for compression or cylinder sealing. It's just oil control. But they do see some heat, obviously. So I will put these back in the bore, and I'll just measure just to get a rough, idea what that gap is. You don't usually have to gap an oil ring, but if they butt because of excessive heat, you got major problems going on above that with these. So with that said, I'll probably just kind of show you what I did here, even though I already got my numbers recorded, but then we'll discuss the numbers here. But I'll show you what I do. And again, this is just, I'm not a professional engine builder. I don't claim to be. I'm just kind of trying to show you guys what any average dude can do, and just document what you're doing. Take it slow, take it easy, teach yourself how to use some measuring equipment, inspect things, and just do it. You are gonna wreck a lot of shit. I mean, like a ridiculous amount of shit, but perseverance always wins. And that's what I like. I like overcoming my errors. So we'll get going on kind of explaining how I measure that stuff. All right, now that I have possibly the most awkward camera angle I could come up with to show you what I'm doing here, but we're gonna do it anyways. So all I do is, new or used, doesn't matter at what point you're doing this, whether you're setting up a fresh set or like I'm doing right now, inspecting a used set. I'm wearing an orange glove because I was hoping it would help make what I'm doing here a little more visible with this ring. But anyways, this is a kind of a feel thing, but you got to constantly keep your same point of reference. Do everything the same always. So it's kind of like a feeler gauge type thing. So I'm not compressing the ring with my hand or nothing, but I'm just going in here and I'm gonna measure this gap. And I want to kind of get sort of close to just what a feeler gauge would feel like. Just a little drag across the point of the tips of the caliper. And right about there, we're looking good. And like I said, I already measured all these, so I'm just going to show you one top, one bottom. So number 1 top ring, already measured it. Relaxed, used number 385. So you can see that up here, number 1, 385. So obviously when it was new and I measured it, it says 395. So that top ring lost about 10 thou of tension from how I measured it when they were new. I don't think that's a bad amount. 10 thou is, it's not a lot, to be honest with you. You could take, I'll just show you. So we're set at, this is still 385. So we got a little bit of drag. So we'll go to 395. We'll show you that little bit of difference. It's barely, just a slight bit more drag. So this is where it's critical that you develop your own sense of feel for this. And trust your gut. If you measure it one way and it feels a certain amount of drag, go with that same amount of drag on every one. That's why even just by feel, you end up with a 10 thou difference. I've been running these tools a long time, so it's just a thing I've developed. You can do it too. Now we got a second ring gap here. So this is a second ring, piston 1. Previously, when they were new, measured 430, and I get about 425 right now. So the second ring lost about 5 thou tension, so 425. And that's how I recorded it here as well. You can see, get this held up here for you. You can see your second ring measured 430 when it was new. Second ring, number 1, 425 now. So again, lost 5 thou tension, roughly, by my feel. So that's not crazy, and I think these rings are just fine to reuse. Another thing you'll want to make note of, and I'm going to grab one thing quick. Stay right there. So anyway, this is what I want to grab. If you're doing motors, you're going to want some sort of magnifying tools, and it can be anything from a regular magnifying glass. I use this a lot. I had LASIK surgery done like 15, 18 years ago. My eyes are pretty good, but there is some shit I can't see. And if you've ever used one of these, or know what this is, you get these at Harbor Freight. You can get them like a set of, it's 5 or 6 in a set. This one's a 10 times magnification. It's a monocle for your eye, like a jeweler would use. And on rings, there's identifying, when they're brand new, there's identifying marks on these. When you install rings, that identifying mark always goes up. Any kind of lettering, numbers, symbols, anything, it's always up. Even if there's like a notch on the inside edge, a notch, a bevel, whatever, it's always up. I just flipped you off. Sorry. But when the rings are worn, the letters, numbers, symbols, if they're there, they can be worn away. If you get a monocle, you can practically see where it was really clear. And that'll just help if you got all the rings are off the pistons and you happen to flip them around, just moving stuff around in the shop, on the bench, whatever. You want to make sure you always get them back installed back in the same direction they came off. So they're meant to work in a certain way or a certain direction. just so you keep it the same. But yeah, it's like, I'd be lying. It's fucking Harbor Freight, so it was probably like $1 for all 6 of these, but realistically, it was probably less, $5, something like that. They're good to have around, even for looking down throttle bodies, looking into cylinder head ports, and especially if you're doing anything valve seat related. Like when I lap valves in one of my other videos, you saw me lapping valves. I don't think I had them in the video. I don't think I showed what I was doing. But if you go back when you're done lapping valves and look at the seats, you can really see imperfections, or if there's a pit or something you didn't catch. But yeah, just a cheap tool everybody should have in their toolbox. Now, I showed you what I measure, how I measure, what my actual numbers are. Now we're actually going to check ring gaps. I run a certain number, and kind of like my bearing clearances, I probably won't really get into what I run, just because it's not like it's a big trade secret. I just don't like getting into that type of debate. I've done enough of this to know what didn't work. It took a long time of fucking up a lot of shit to figure out what does work. And I'm just going to kind of keep that number to myself. No offense. Don't be mad. But there's no reason they should really be a different gap than what I installed them at. But I'll show you how I go about it. Maybe you'll learn something, maybe not. Send the hate mail to somebody else. Okay, all I do is I'll just show you one cylinder, because you don't need to watch me do the same thing 4 times, unless I feel like putting a little fast forward video segment in here. But number 1, piston ring, top ring. And I did already go through this and figure out which way is up. I don't think it matters for gapping, but I have them all kind of laying the same way. And I use the actual piston to square it up, and I usually go down to about the bottom of the bottom land down here, just about that depth. Feeler gauges. So I already know what I set these at, so we're going to go right to that number to start with, and we'll see what we're at. And again, I have no reason to think it would be different, but I do want to find out if it is. Maybe I missed something when I originally put it together and fucked something up. I'll find it now. And yeah, it's right on what I set them at originally. But we'll check them all. Okay, so I went through and double checked all my ring gaps. Oddly enough, I did find 2 that are like just a smidge snugger than I'd like them to be. In theory, there's no reason that a ring gap would ever just over time get tight. You would think that if the ring wears, that gap opens up. It would take an incredible amount of wear. But all I can think is that the 2 that I found that are a little snug is when I initially put the motor together, it might have been snug to start with, and I just said, fuck it, that's close enough. But it's just slightly, 2 of them are just slightly snugger than the other 2. So again, this goes back to that whole feel thing. Looking for stuff that might be different or might be off. I found a couple things, we're gonna address it, and I'm gonna go ahead and re-gap those 2 and set them up be identical to the other ones. And again, it's all of a feel thing. There was just a slight bit drag on the feeler gauge, a slight bit more drag than the other 2. So top rings all seem good. It was 2 of the second rings that I found, and like I said, odds are pretty good. I said fuck it when I first put them together and said it was close enough. But I'll show you my little ring gapping tool. So you probably saw this coming. Ta-da! Here's my little ring gapping tool. There's several different ways to gap a ring. I found this thing to be dirt cheap and easy. I'm not buying one of them super expensive electric motor driven whatevers. Just a hand crank, a little bit of time, and you get them just right. All you gotta do is lay your ring on here. The surface here is nice and flat. You come up to these two little guides. They're not really rollers, but they're tapered. So that, I don't know if you can see that, it catches the ring underneath it. So as you push the ring in, it stays down. And all you do is you just manually squeeze them a little bit, and push in, and then you would take and just slowly crank it. It'll just take a little material off. So I'm going to go ahead and then gap these two up how I want them, and we'll be done. I'll just take a file and knock off any edge where that might have just made a burr. I just don't want to score up the fresh hone job on there. Doesn't take much, you don't have to push hard. You're just knocking any kind of burr off. Perfect. It don't take much, and it don't take a lot of time. So there's another one I wanted to change the gap on. Double check it. They grabbed the wrong one. That was actually a good one. It was this one. Yeah, there we go. That's the one that's a little snug. Not by much. You'll know right away too if there's a burr on your end gaps. Just take whatever piston it's going on, take the gap in the ring groove that it's going in, number two groove, take and roll the gap through. If it hangs up, see that one hung up? And we're dropping shit. So see how that first end goes through just fine. That one hangs up right there. That means there's a little burr on there yet. That's the little stuff you want to look for because it'll be a problem when you put it together. Okay, we'll test it again. Second groove, right there. Rolls in there just fine. Rolls right through it. That's all you want to see. You don't want those end gaps to be a burr to hang it up to where the ring will compress and stick. So hopefully you learned something there. So I know we didn't cover a bunch of ground as far as actually getting any real any assembly done. Like the motor, nothing looks different from when we started, but the big goal today, I'm not gonna be in the garage all day today, so I just took a little time to get something done. I needed to get those all measured and inspected to make sure that's what I want to do to reuse, and then we double check ring gaps, so I know we're good there. So basically, the next time I come out, what if I'm feeling ambitious? I need the camera's up real high. So yeah, if I'm feeling ambitious next time out, is I can actually start putting all this together. That's all ready to go. Got, you know, rods and bearings here. I'm still, I don't know what's going on with fucking exhaust valve manufacturers right now. It's kind of a sore subject, honestly. But anyway, yeah, most of everything else is ready to go back together. And then, yeah, I'm going to do a little something different when the cases are all together. I got a plan for something. It's gonna be maybe the show bike bug bit me a little hard, but I got something cool I want to try. We'll see how it works. One last thing before I end this video. A friend of mine started a YouTube channel, and he just released his first video, and it's really freaking good. And I think he's going to have some great content. It's going to be not necessarily race stuff like my drag bike, street bike stuff here. He's doing a lot of car and bike stuff. He's got a bike he's working on, a little bobber project. He's got a kick-ass Trans Am car he's been building, big block car, by the way. But it's Common Garage, COMMON Garage. Go find his channel, like it, follow it. I really do think it's going to be a really entertaining channel to watch. It'll be fun. So I expect all of you to go follow that guy. Give him some love. He earned it. So we'll see you next time.